And one of the things that we really needed was these Section 1135 waivers, because there are so many rules with Medicare and Medicaid that are meant to protect. For example, the typical rule is that before somebody recovering from, say, knee surgery in the hospital can go to inpatient rehabilitation, they need to spend 72 hours in the hospital. That means that hospital bed is taken up by somebody who doesn't need to be in a hospital bed. And so it undoes rules like that. It also allows for the setup of drive-through testing, which keeps people away from the hospital. Is so important, and will allow, for example, the Army Corps of Engineers to be able to build accessory facilities where people can go and get treated. So it really gets rid of a lot of red tape, and we asked for it over a week ago.
One of the problems, though, is that on the ground, we see it here in Wenatchee, the availability of testing and testing supplies has been an issue. So is there anything Congress can do to enable greater availability of that testing?
So when we put through that bill, and that part of the bill was mine, it was free testing so that there wouldn't be co-pays. If somebody didn't have insurance, they could still get tested. The idea was that we did not want anybody to not see their doctor, not get tested, not take sick leave for financial reasons. So that whole sort of first financial package was to make sure people could get tested and stay home from work and stay home with their children if they needed to. The problem is that there's this disconnect right now between what we hear from the administration. I don't want to get political about this, and what we're really seeing on the ground, because we hear things like, oh, there'll be drive-through testing. Anybody who wants a test can get a test. And yet we're running out of swabs. We're running out of reagents. Test kits aren't getting everywhere. The nurses and doctors who want to do the testing don't have the right personal protective equipment to put on. And so the reality on the ground does not match what we're hearing in the national news. The reality on the ground is that we have very few tests, and they need to be reserved for first responders, people who work in healthcare providers, and for people who are the sickest or at highest risk. And you know, I'm also frustrated that we see this mixed message coming from, you know, basketball players who are being tested with no symptoms, and that is a waste of resources that people who are ill really need.
Are there steps that Congress can take, though, to sort of open up that channel, more financing or funding for testing, for example?
Sure. You know, it is not a question of funding. We have provided a ton of funding. What this is really a question of, I believe, is the administration stepping up. We've heard about talk with 3M and Honeywell. We've heard about we make requests every week from the national stockpile. But let me just put this in perspective. The anticipation is we're going to need over 1 billion of these N95 masks, and there are in the single millions in the national stockpile. And between us and New York and California, we're going to blow through that really quickly. And in my opinion, what we need is for this to be part of the Defense Production Act, where our president doesn't just talk about having that, but really uses it and says, okay, t-shirt makers, it's time to start making masks instead. Okay, you know, we heard Tesla offered and to start making ventilators. It is time. In fact, a month ago was time to start getting that going. And Again, I don't mean to be alarmist, but I want to put real numbers out there. There's something like 72,000 ventilators in the entire country, and that includes the national stockpile. And the estimates vary, but it's around that. If half the people in our country are going to get this, that's 150 million people. And if 5% of them need to be in the ICU, we are looking at a world of hurt.